Ancient Egypt often appears in textbooks as a land of pyramids, gods, and golden treasures, but everyday life along the Nile could be surprisingly strange. In this first part, we step away from pharaohs and monuments to explore the weird rhythms of common life. Cleanliness mattered deeply in ancient Egypt, yet the methods could seem odd. Egyptians bathed frequently, sometimes several times a day, because ritual purity was linked to health and religion. To remove body hair, many people shaved their heads and bodies completely. This was not a beauty trend alone. It was a defense against lice, heat, and disease. Even children experienced strange customs. Young boys and girls often wore no clothing at all until about 6 years old, especially in poorer families. Losing the side lock was a symbolic step toward adulthood. Over time, this wore down people's teeth severely, making dental pain common. It was safer than water and consumed by all ages, including children. Cosmetics were not a luxury but a necessity, and their use could look strange to modern eyes. Both men and women heavily lined their eyes with black coal or green malachite. While this created the iconic Egyptian look, it also served medical and magical purposes. The minerals helped reduce eye infections and were believed to ward off evil spirits. Perfume cones made of scented fat were placed on people's heads during parties. As the fat slowly melted in the heat, fragrance dripped down the hair and skin, a sight that would appear very unusual today. Many Egyptians carried amulets shaped like animals, eyes, or symbols, trusting them to protect against accidents, illness, or bad luck. It was a sign that required interpretation. This constant awareness of the supernatural made daily life feel like a conversation with unseen forces. Medicine blended science with magic in equally strange ways. Doctors, who were respected professionals, prescribed treatments that mixed herbal remedies with spells. A patient suffering from pain might be given a poultice, while a healer recited incantations to chase away evil spirits thought to cause illness. Some remedies worked surprisingly well, while others, such as using animal dung in treatments, seem shocking now. In ancient Egypt, the ordinary day was never truly ordinary. Beneath the heat, dust, and routine labor existed a world where shaved heads hid under wigs. Children drank beer, perfume melted down faces, and magic walked hand in hand with practicality. Daily routines were also shaped by the river itself. Since the Nile's flooding determined work schedules, rest days, and even moods, when waters rose, farmers repaired tools, told stories, and trusted the gods for fertile silt. When waters fell, intense labor returned. Yet Egyptians found comfort in order, ritual, and repetition. Their weirdness was not chaos but balance, proving that even the most unfamiliar habits once felt perfectly normal to the people living them. In that sense, their daily life reminds us that normality depends entirely on time, place, belief, and the stories societies choose to live by. While basic routines already seem strange, social habits and work life in ancient Egypt could be even more unusual. Society followed strict hierarchies, yet daily interactions were filled with customs that feel unexpected today. From marriage and family life to labor and punishment, Egyptians accepted practices that blended practicality, symbolism, and belief in divine order. Marriage in ancient Egypt was surprisingly informal compared to later civilizations. There were no grand religious ceremonies or official documents for most couples. A marriage began when a man moved into a woman's home, or she into his, and both families acknowledged the union. Love poems suggest affection mattered, yet marriage was mainly a practical partnership. If a relationship failed, property was divided, and both partners could remarry freely. A level of personal freedom that feels modern but existed within a very different moral world. Family life included unusual ideas about gender roles. Women could own property, sign contracts, and run businesses, which was rare in the ancient world. However, childbirth was dangerous and surrounded by strange rituals. Pregnant women wore protective amulets and prayed to gods like Toret, the hippopotamus goddess of fertility. Birth bricks were used during labor, with the mother squatting on them while helpers chanted spells. After birth, newborns were carefully observed for omens, since survival was never guaranteed. Work life was demanding and often harsh. Farmers, builders, and craftsmen worked long hours under the sun, but they also followed rituals to ensure success. Before major projects, offerings were made to gods to prevent accidents. Even so, Ancient Egyptian laborers enjoyed something unexpected: organized rest days. Records show workers on tomb projects received days off for religious festivals, illness, or even hangovers, proving that excuses for missing work are truly ancient. Punishment and justice could appear especially strange, though laws were based on the idea of ma'at, meaning balance and order. Crimes disrupted this balance and required correction. Minor offenses were punished with beatings, while serious crimes led to mutilation or death. What seems shocking is how public punishment was. Criminals were whipped or executed in front of crowds as a warning to others. This visibility reinforced fear, but also reminded people that cosmic order must be maintained at all costs. Entertainment also reflected unusual values. Music, dance, and storytelling filled daily life, yet humor could be dark. Jokes were told about death, gods, and even pharaohs, though carefully. Board games like Sanat were not just for fun. They symbolized the journey of the soul through the afterlife. Winning a game was considered a good omen, while losing suggested future struggles. Leisure was never separate from belief. Animals played intimate roles in households and cities. Killing a cat, even accidentally, could result in execution. Other animals, such as baboons, crocodiles, and snakes, were linked to specific gods and treated with reverence or fear. Families kept pets, adorned them with jewelry, and buried them ceremonially, reflecting emotional bonds that feel familiar yet were tied to religious devotion. People prepared for the afterlife throughout their lives, saving for coffins, amulets, and tomb goods. Even the poorest hoped for a decent burial, believing the soul needed a preserved body to survive. This obsession made daily behavior cautious, moral, and ritualized. Life was lived with death always in sight, shaping actions in ways that seem unsettling today. In Part B, the weirdness of ancient Egyptian daily life becomes clearer through relationships, work, justice, and belief. What feels strange now once provided stability and meaning. Their world was not irrational, but deeply ordered by values very different from ours, reminding us that everyday normality is always defined by culture, faith, and survival. Through these customs, ancient Egyptians learned to trust routine and tradition more than personal comfort. Security came from repetition, ritual, and shared belief, not from questioning authority or habit. To modernize, this acceptance feels strange, yet it allowed millions to cooperate across centuries. Their daily lives reveal a civilization that survived by turning faith into habit and habit into identity, making the unfamiliar feel safe, predictable, and meaningful even during hardship, loss, uncertainty, flood, famine, heat, shaping humanity's story in quiet, ordinary, repetitive, resilient human moments each single day lived. As strange as life seemed while living, the weirdness of ancient Egypt reached its peak in how people prepared for death and imagined eternity. Death was not an ending, but a relocation, and daily behavior revolved around that belief. Every action, word, and habit carried weight because Egyptians believed they would be judged in the afterlife. This constant awareness shaped routines in ways that feel unsettling, obsessive, yet deeply logical within their worldview. The most famous custom, mummification, was not reserved only for pharaohs. Anyone who could afford it wanted their body preserved. The process itself was bizarre and highly ritualized. The heart, however, was left inside, believed to contain intelligence and morality. Without an intact body, the soul could not recognize itself, making physical preservation a daily concern long before death arrived. Egyptians believed that speaking or writing a person's name kept them alive. Erasing a name was a second death. This belief affected daily habits, encouraging people to carve names into objects, walls, and tombs. Ordinary citizens hoped future generations would read their names aloud, granting them continued existence. Immortality depended not on memory alone, but on repetition, making writing a sacred survival tool. The afterlife itself mirrored daily life, but with strange twists. People expected to farm, eat, and work forever, yet without pain or exhaustion. These figures were believed to magically come alive and work for their owner in the afterlife. Planning eternal laziness while living a life of labor feels oddly humorous and revealing. Moral behavior was guided by fear of judgment. A heavy heart meant failure and destruction by a monster, not eternal torture, but total erasure. This belief encouraged honesty, kindness, and obedience in daily interactions. However, moral confessions carved into tombs show how specific their fears were. People proudly claimed they had not stolen bread, cheated measures, or caused hunger, revealing what daily temptations were most common. Time itself felt different in ancient Egypt. Life was seen as a cycle, not a straight line. The sun's daily death and rebirth reinforced this idea, making repetition comforting rather than boring. Festivals reenacted myths, meals followed tradition, and clothing styles changed slowly. To modern minds craving novelty, this sameness feels strange, but for Egyptians, stability meant survival and harmony with the universe. Fear of chaos shaped everyday caution. Foreigners, deserts, storms, and darkness symbolized disorder. Even laughter and music had protective roles, believed to please the gods and repel evil forces. Everything served a cosmic purpose, turning ordinary moments into acts of spiritual maintenance. Weirdness also appeared in how Egyptians viewed themselves. This belief created strong cultural confidence and resistance to change. This certainty reduced anxiety, even during famine or invasion, because meaning remained intact. In the end, the weird daily life of ancient Egypt was not strange to those living it. It was structured, symbolic, and deeply reassuring. What shocks modern readers reveals how humans adapt belief to environment. Shaved heads, magical medicine, public punishment, constant death awareness, and eternal planning formed a system that worked for thousands of years. Their daily lives show that normality is flexible, shaped by faith, fear, hope, and survival. Ancient Egyptians lived every day as preparation for forever. That mindset transformed eating, working, loving, and resting into acts of cosmic importance. Their world may feel weird, but it was carefully balanced, deeply human, and astonishingly enduring, reminding us that strangeness often hides wisdom shaped by time. Belief, repetition, necessity, imagination, discipline, memory, fear, comfort, and meaning across countless ordinary days.